So I hope everyone is able to see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, as you have realized, I don't speak German, but PowerPoint does. So hopefully it will help you understand what I'm saying. I'll try and speak a little bit slower than I usually do, and I'm sure it'll work fine. The idea of this presentation is to make sure that you are making your life using Joomla as easy as possible. We're adding new features to Joomla all the time, but are you actually using them? So as you can see, I've got a lot of different things to show you, and some of them I'm sure some of you will know, some of them I'm sure you don't know. Hopefully you'll find it useful. So the first thing I want to talk about is how I build a website. And the hardest thing is just getting started, making what I call a quick prototype. And I'm just going to show you here the way that I do it. And I start from the menu and I build the menu first. So I'm just going to play this short clip. So you can see I can create a new menu item. In this case it's for a travel website, so I'm calling it trips. And I'm creating an article category blog. And I'm going to create the category right here from the menu. So I've created the menu and I've created the menu item, so I can save that. And I can go ahead and I'm now going to create a simple article. And again, directly from the menu. I'm just going to create an article just as a placeholder, an empty article, and I'm going to call it gallery. But I'm going to put it in a new category. I haven't created the category yet. I'm just going to type it in, and when I save, the category will be created as well as the article. I'm going to create another contact page now. So again, I'm going to go to the contacts components. That's the wrong one. It's the contacts, single contacts. And again, I'm going to create it here. So all I'm going to put in for now is just the site and the email address. If you don't put in an email address, then the contact form will never display. And I'll just create one more article. And this time I'm going to call it terms and conditions. But I guess because I'm talking to German users, I should be creating an impressum. And again, just create the article. And you can see I'm doing everything right now just from the menu. I've not left the menu page. And so now I've done all of that, you can see I've got, if I go to my articles, you can see there's the 2 articles that I created. There are now 4 categories, so uncategorized plus the 3 extra ones that I created. There's the contacts, and if I switch to the front end of the site, you can see on my menu I've got all 5 menu items. So I've done that very, very quickly, directly from the menu, just to give me the starting point for building my website. So the next thing we're going to talk about is actually what I call content templates. And this is to ensure that you can create a consistent layout from article to article, so that you can reuse those layouts across different sites, and how you can just save some time with some predefined code. So here I am inside Joomla. I'm using TinyMCE, and there is an icon there which is a stamp, and if that is what does the content templates. Before you can use them, you have to go to the TinyMCE plugin and scroll down and tell it where to find the templates. By default it says non-selected, but then it will display the list of all the templates that you have. So you can see the default here is Cassiopeia /HTML /TinyMCE. So once you've enabled that, you can actually create your content layouts. You can see right now I'm in the template manager. I'm in the HTML TinyMCE folder, and you can see on the left hand side I've got about 10 layouts already created. They're all .txt files, so they might contain HTML or even PHP or JavaScript, but they all have to be given a .txt file. You can either create these files inside the template manager, or if you've already created some and you want to reuse them, you can upload them to that folder through FTP or your website file manager. And you can see here we've got some very basic Bootstrap code. In fact, I think everything you're going to see now is taken from the Bootstrap's own examples. So now if I go back to the TinyMCE and click on the editor, you can see here is the first layout I've created, and it pulls all of that in automatically. I've got an image, it's formatted, I've got headings, and then I can just go in and change it. But we can also do some other ones. So this one is I'll just scroll through the different ones I have. And this is a button. And you can see it's changed that highlighted text into a button. I'll just do that again. So I'll highlight the text, hit the templates, and then hit my button and insert. And there it's done it. So it's really nice and easy. But it doesn't have to be something as complex as this. It could be something that you use a lot. So obviously during COVID, I was putting this type of information message on all my content. So to make sure it always looked the same and to save me some time, I just used a layout. So this next part is an add-on for TinyMCE that I created. It's the only add-on or extension that I'm going to mention in this talk. And I'm going to mention it just simply because I think you'll like it and it will save you time. So again, I'm in TinyMCE. I've enabled and installed the plugin. And you can, as I hit the slash, this menu appears. And I can navigate to that menu with my mouse or with my keyboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is go full screen. And now if I type /H, it's pre-filled the word H1 heading, and I can just automatically type over it. And that's an H1. And I can do the same with an H2. It's pre-selected. I just type. And we can do other things such as bulleted lists. And we can even do some sentences or even some paragraphs. And this just makes a quick and easy way for you to keep getting something on the site so that you can see how it's going to work. We can also put some dummy images, a 4x3 and also a 3x4 image. And that's just going to make life really quick and easy for you to get something on the page so that you can see what it is that you're building, you can see how it's going to look, what you need to adjust to your template and your design. If anybody wants that, it's just on my GitHub account and it's called /tools, and it's got full instructions about how to install it and configure it. So this is something that I'm sure everybody has done at some point. At least I have regularly, which is I make a change on the website and I check and nothing's changed, and it's because I'm working on the wrong sites. I've probably opened the wrong tab and I've changed one person's Joomla site instead of another person's. Or in one case last week, I uninstalled an extension on the wrong site. So what I try to do is to always customize the admin interface. And I do that using the admin template styles. If you open up the Atom default templates, you'll find three options to change the image. There's the large image, the site image, and the login image. So you can see now in the top left, we've got, in this case, the site name, which I've created as an image. I've also got it when I go small. And just to really emphasize this, I also changed the first of those color values. And I usually just take it all the way to one end, set the hue value to 0, and it now changes it to a sort of a reddish color. And now that you've done that, you've not only customized this page when you're inside the admin, the login page has also changed. You can see we've got the site logo in the top left, we've got a site logo in the login box, and it's using that color scheme. Just make sure that I'm always going into the correct website when I'm trying to do some work. But we can also go a step further and customize the dashboard. So this is the home dashboard, the default one as it comes, and these are just basically modules. So what you can do is get rid of the ones that you don't need. So I don't need the sample data anymore, so I'm just going to unpublish that. I don't need the privacy dashboard on this site, or the logged in users, all the popular articles, and you know what, I probably don't need the actions either, so I'm just going to unpublish that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to add a new module, and this is just the articles latest, so that's already being displayed, but this time I'm going to apply a filter to it so that it's only going to show my articles. So it's content that I've added or I've modified. So now when I log into the site, I can really quickly see my articles. I'm also going to change some of these icons. So this site has no users, so I can hide that. And I'm just going to display the template code icon as well. So you can see now I've simplified the admin dashboard, but I've also made it more appropriate for what I want to do, what I want to work. And you could go further. You could remove the plugins icon, the modules icon, whatever you want to do. But it just makes it easier the more that you make it work the way that you work rather than the default settings. So one of the common problems ever since we began Joomla is there's too much information on the page. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about the list views. So this is the users list. And people will complain there's too much here. This is a very wide screen, so it doesn't look too bad. But it looks worse on some other screens, such as the articles, especially if you're on a multilingual website. So people say there's too much information there. The problem is what to remove. You can guarantee that everyone will disagree about what is or what isn't useful. So all the Joomla admin list views on the right hand side have a box that says the number of columns, and when you click on it, it lists the columns. And you can uncheck anything you want, and when you do that, they've now gone. So you've now got a much cleaner interface. Now, just to be aware, that is just for you on the browser that you are using right now. So it will save it in the browser, but it won't if you open up a different browser or on a different computer. The settings will have gone back to the defaults. One of the other things we all forget is when you come back to a website 6 months later, 9 months later, you don't remember why you did something. here's a really good example. Here's the modules on this site, and you can see I've got 3 modules called CTA, which stands for call to action. They're all in the position CTA, and they're all on pages selected. So the only thing I can do to find out which one is the one that I really want to edit is to open each one at a time until I find it. But what you can do is, if you look in the module and when you scroll down, right there on the bottom right is a field called Note. And here in this Note field, you can actually start to put in there something useful. So here we can see I've updated it, and it now says note about this page, note contact box on trips. And I've also put other notes, such as this is on the home page. But I can also use the search box and search for something that will display, or anything that's got home in it. So here we can see I've typed in home, and it's found a module with a note saying it's on the home page, a module called the home page, and that's made it really quick and easy way for me to see what I'm doing. And this is not just for modules. Everywhere there's a note field, you can do exactly the same. So you can do this on content, on categories, on menus, and much more. The next one I'm going to look at is a custom admin menu. So this is what the menu, my custom admin menu, looks like. On the left hand side, there's just those 5 links. 6 links. And I've done that by creating a new admin menu module, and then putting the links in and unpublishing the original admin menu. You can also just use this as a shortcut, so you keep the original admin menu and add your second admin menu with just your direct links. So in this case, the trips menu opens up the articles manager filtered by the category trips. So you can just make life easier. Mail templates is something relatively new to Joomla, and in 5.2 had a big improvement as well. So this is the default email that someone might receive when they sign up for your website. It's plain text. It is boring, it's not branded, and it's just not very exciting. And the same, this is the username reminder email, and again, it's not very interesting, it's not branded. If you go to the mail templates and select the options, you can do 2 things. The first one is you can change it from sending in plain text to sending in HTML, or both. Most people, HTML will be absolutely fine, but you might, if you've got some older users, want to switch it to both, and then they will just see whichever one their email client is set to. But you can also set the logo. So here you can see I've inserted the logo. And now when I receive the emails, my logo's at the top, it's got my copyright, it's got a live link at the bottom, it's got a little bit of styling, and it just looks so much nicer. It's branded, and brand awareness is really important. You can go further than that, because these emails, this email is still using the default text. If you want, you can go into the individual mail templates. So here I'm going into one of the user account emails, and you can see I can completely customize it and make it look more personal to the user. If your site is very jovial, you can change you can write the text to match the mood of your site. And you can see here it's much cleaner. It's talking about booking your holiday because this is a travel website, and it makes everything just so much better. This is one that took me a long time to learn. I'm glad I took the time in the end to learn, because it's now saving me a lot of time moving forwards. Hopefully you all know how to create template overrides, where you click on the folder in the template manager and it will create all the overrides. But it creates all the overrides in that folder, not just the ones that you want to actually change. So here we can see on this site, it's got 198 overrides that I need to check on a new release of Joomla. Now, if you think that's a ridiculous amount, if you're using an extension such as DP Calendar, that's got at least this number of layouts that you could override. So when you go into your template manager, if you look on the left hand side, you can see I've got the folder booking form open, and in there are 12 files. But which ones of these have I actually changed? And if you look, you can enable show original file and show differences. And what I recommend you do is, when you are creating overrides, and when you finish creating the overrides and your site's ready, you do what I'm going to show you now. So you go through each of these overrides, you turn on show original file, and you turn on show differences, and you scroll down, and here we can see that there is no difference between the original and the override. So at this point I know I can go up and I can delete this file. Why does this matter? Because next month DP Calendar might release a new version which does override this file. And now you have to check to see, do I need to update my overrides? You can't see the differences anymore because the differences are with the new version, not with your original. So this will save you a lot of time. So just to repeat, when you've created your overrides and they're all working how you want, delete all the other files that are in your layout override folder that have not changed. So this is something I never realized before, but when you go to your media folder, in Media Manager, those images by default are the original images. So each one of these images here is several megabytes in size. That means that this page is going to be quite slow to load. And obviously the more images you have, the slower it will be. But what you can do is, if you go to the File System Local plugin, there is an option called Create Thumbnails. And that by default is set to no. So just change to yes and save and close. That's all you have to do. And now when you open up Media Manager, it will load up a thumbnail that's located in the Media Cache folder and not the full-size image. So we can see here on the left, that folder I showed you was 18.5 megabytes of images and took 7.3 seconds to fully load. When I switch it to just using the thumbnails, it goes down to 79k. A tiny amount. Again, more images you have, or the bigger images you have, the more speed improvement you will see. But you also see it if you're using a mobile device. or your internet connection is not great. So it's absolutely worth your while just going into that plugin and changing that setting to enable the cache, enable the thumbnails. This next one is one that I wrote for Core, and it's because I was sick of seeing people writing instructions, including on Joomla's documentation site, that said if you want to have a custom 404 page, you should just do a redirect on the error page to an article. And that's wrong. It's wrong for many reasons, but the most important one is you've now lost the 404 header in the and it's just not very good. So what you can do, so this is what the 404 page would look like out of the box on this site. And I can go in and I can create a module. In this case, I've created a custom module with an image and some text. And I'm going to publish it in the error 404 position. You can see there's also an error 403 position there, and if you wanted, it will support other error codes, but you just have to type those positions in manually. So now that I've put error 404, you can see now that 404 page has changed from something ugly to something a bit more fun, and I've put a button on here to say get in contact. You can do all sorts of things, but the important thing is it's keeping the 404 headers, so it's a valid 404 page, and it's easy for you to edit and look attractive. No more editing language strings or doing bad redirects. Again, this is another one actually that I added, which is web safe fonts. So what does this mean? So websites like to have attractive fonts. I understand that. If the font is a Google font, then there may be a privacy issue. I know in Germany it's very strict, and there's a lot of publications that say using Google fonts is a breach of the GDPR. There's also others that say that that's not true. But even if you're loading the font locally, it will do what's called a layout shift. So if the font doesn't match the dimensions of the system fonts, it will shift. So Google doesn't like that, and it doesn't instantly render the font. There are, however, a series of web safe fonts. So what does this mean? So these are all available, and they're a collection. If I just jump into one, so this one is Geometric Humanist, and you can see that roughly they're all the same. They're not identical, but they're pretty close. And on the left hand side you'll see the operating system and the font name for that operating system. And again here for Classical Humanist the same. So in other words, what this is going to do, if we use the Classical Humanist web font stack, if you're on a Mac you will see Optima. If you're on Windows 7 you will see Candara. If you're on Linux you'll see Noto Sans, and if you're on Android you will see Source Sans Pro. Sorry, I've lost the example page. This is set in the Cassiopeia template style. And the really important thing with this, these are lightning fast because there's nothing to download. The font is already on the user's computer. So this is something that I couldn't understand. I've got a website and people kept saying to me, I can't log in, I've lost my password. I click on the link and nothing happens. And I didn't understand until I saw someone doing this. And what they meant was this is the site, and if I scroll down you'll see there's my login box right at the bottom, and if I clicked on the link it jumps to the top of the page because it's buried inside the page because of that huge header, and simply people were not spotting it on the page. They just thought that the page had reloaded and they were still on the home page. And this is a super simple thing to fix. You can just go and create a menu item for lost username and lost password. And now when you click on those links on the module, it loads up the page, the correct page. And so in this case, I don't have that huge header on the page, and users spotted it straight away. And I no longer get those messages. You can see here, this is the menu item type of a username reminder request. And you just set it to not display in the menu. So it's hidden from the menu, but that doesn't stop it working. And now it's great. It's all there. On the one of the Joomla Facebook pages recently, there was a discussion, what extensions do you always install? And as I looked down that list of extensions that people were saying they always installed, I realised that most of them, or maybe not most, but a lot of them, are no longer needed. Because Joomla has changed, that feature is maybe now part of core Joomla. Maybe you were using something to add notes on the display of your modules, but I've shown you that we've got the notes field in Joomla, and you can use that. You don't need to install another extension. It's the same is true with a lot of cache cleaners. Most of them are no longer needed, because when you save the article, Joomla invalidates the cache for that article. So just every so often think, do I still need this extension that I've installed? And a good example of that is in Joomla 5.0, when we introduced the dark or light mode to the admin template, we didn't get the code completely correct for how it identifies which one you want. So people were installing hacks and plugins and extra buttons to address that. That's all changed in Joomla 5.1, so you don't need them. So just to show you, the admin template can be set in the template style to either always be light, always be dark, or use the operating system / browser preferences of the user, which is kind of like saying automatic. And you also have now in this user menu in the top right a menu link saying light dark mode, and you can quickly switch it there as well. So you don't need any of the add-ons that were created for changing the dark mode. That's just no longer needed. Hopefully you will know about debug groups, about the debug plugin. That you can enable it. When you enable it, there's some extra information at the bottom, displayed at the bottom of your web page, with the queries that have been performed and some other information. The problem is that by default, when you enable it, it's enabled in the admin and the site at the same time. So you might be debugging an issue in the admin of a specific component, and at the same time everyone who visits your site will also see that debug information. Now, it's not a security issue anymore, but it's definitely not something that's nice to see. So what you can do is, if you go to the debug plugin, and you can see on the left there's lots of options about what you can display, but the most important one is on the right hand side. where you can set the access. And if you set the access to super users, then only those users will see the debug. So you can turn it on, you're logged into the admin, you turn it on and you can see it, but no one visiting your site at the front end will ever see it. It's also really important because occasionally people forget that they've turned this plugin on and they leave it there. And some very experienced people do it. There's even one site that I'm aware of that's had it turned on in the front end for at least the last 3 months. I keep looking to see, and it's still there. Unfortunately, I don't know the owner of the site, otherwise I would contact them and tell them. But if you change the debug plugin access to super users, then you resolve that. Even if you've left it on, your site visitors will not see it. Most people don't know that when you upgrade Joomla, Joomla creates a log file. And we see often people saying, something's wrong with my site, I've just upgraded. And when you say to them, well, was the upgrade a success? They usually say something like, well, I think so. It all seems to work okay, but it did give an error message at the end, but I forget what it was. Well, there is an upgrade log, and you will find it in /administrator logs Joomla update.php. And the most important things here, the one is in the middle, you can see start of SQL updates. And then it says the queries that have been run. And the important bit is it says end of SQL updates. Quite often, this is where the problem with the query is where people fall over, and it will say end of SQL updates not completed. Or it will just simply stop the log at that point. And that's when you know your update has not been completed. So you should always look for, at the end of that file, update to version 5 point whatever is complete. And if it didn't say that, then you know that something hasn't quite worked. Which pulls you on to the button that was called Database Fix, and it's maintenance database on the systems page. And up until Joomla 4 point something, the button said fix database. But it doesn't fix the database. It never has fixed the database. All it can do is fix the database structure. So if there was a query, an update query that says add a table, this tool could fix that. If it hadn't worked, this tool would show there was a problem, and you can click the button and it will fix that. If there was a query that added a column, this tool can fix that. What this tool cannot do, never did do, and will never do, is run a query that updates content. So if there was a query that changed a setting in a field, this tool will never do it. So every time you see someone say, click the database fix does not exist. It is update structure. And that's all it will do, is update the structure. Now you may have seen that there's something called shared sessions. And I didn't really understand what this was all about. What it means is when enabled, when you log in the admin, you're automatically logged in the front end as well, and vice versa. So where is this useful? Well, if you're creating an article and it's not published yet, but you want to preview it or run the accessibility check, when you click on preview, that's going to open the site on the front end, but a guest user doesn't have the ability to see that. So what happens is they get a 404 page. Now, if instead you go to the global configuration and the system tab and you set shared sessions to yes, and when you've done that and you go back and you do a preview or an accessibility check, it will load that page on the front end. But of course, it's only because you're logged in, so the public are not going to see it. It's still unpublished, but you're able to preview it and do the accessibility check. I'm sure there are many other reasons to have shared sessions, but this one for me is the reason why I always enable it. In Joomla 5, we switched the structured data from using item prop to JSON rich data. I'm not going to go into the differences between item prop and JSON rich data. What I am going to say to you is the change was made in the layouts. The part of the Joomla which displays on your content. But if you had a template override in place, the change didn't happen to the override. So your override will still be using the old item prop and not the JSON rich data. But then it gets more complicated because the JSON rich data is injected into the page. So you now end up with both. And that's just never good. You're going to have conflicts and search engines are going to get confused. So it's really simple. Go into your templates and again, remember, enable that show difference. If I just jump in here, we can see on the right, item scope, item type equals schema and item prop equals headline. Wherever you see those, you can just delete it so it looks like it does on the left, because that's not needed anymore. So it's a really simple change. It'll only be in a few files and you now get the advantages of JSON rich data without it being conflicting with the old style. This is one that had baffled me for years, and thanks to Hannes it's now mainly resolved. If you have a page on your site, a blog category for example, that you're using to display 3, 6, 9 pieces of text without a read more, and then you check your Google console and you see Google showing links directly to those individual articles. But where did they come from? You didn't have a menu link for them. So how did Google find them? And the answer was Google was using the RSS feed. And the RSS feed was enabled by, it has always been enabled. Here you can see it in the, when I view source of the page. It's always been enabled for every page. And Google would follow that and see the individual articles, and they did have links to the full item, even though your website itself didn't. So now there's a new option in most of the core components under the integration tab, and it says RSS feed link, show or hide. And if you set it to hide, that link has now gone from the source. Google can't follow it on that page, and that's where those links that you didn't know where did they come from were coming from. So that's something that, if that's something that's bothered you, you can now resolve it by disabling the RSS feeds. And this is the last bit, because it's a long time to listen to me talk, especially if you're having to read the subtitles. So hopefully we'll have some time for questions afterwards. And I do know there's several people in the room who speak good English or great English. And if you want to ask a question in German, I'm sure they can translate. So this is the final one. What do I do on my sites for displaying the OG metadata? This is the code that Facebook uses to produce nice shareable links. And there's lots of plugins you can use, but most of them have the same limitations, and that they're relying on you putting an image in every article for it to choose. But this is what I do. So on this specific site, here are screenshots from Facebook of 4 of the pages. Now you can see the image is the same. In fact, they're virtually identical. But what you're seeing there is what I've told Facebook to use. So and this means what I'm going to show you now means that there will be a OG metadata image of the right size for every single page on my website, even if it's a dynamic page such as one created by DP Calendar or something else like that. And what I do is I use Cloudinary. And Cloudinary, I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of, even if you've not used, has lots of tools for image manipulation. And it has a free level, and I can tell you I've been using this method that I'm going to talk about for the last year. Cloudinary has generated 3,500 OG images for me, and I'm still in the free level, so it's 0 cost. What do you do? So I generate this image or something like it, and with that nice purple stripe, and I tell Cloudinary to add the text into that stripe. And so this is really simple. In my template, I put this code, and I'll post a link to where I've got this code saved afterwards. And it's just very briefly, it says set the metadata, the OG title, get the title of the page and give it an attribute property. Do the same for the URL, get the current URL and the property. And the important one is about the 6th one down, the double line, and it says the image, and then it's pointing to the image that I've put on Cloudinary, and then inside that link it's encoding the title of the page, and that's what Cloudinary uses to generate that nice image page. And that's it. Done that, forgot about it. Don't need to worry about it. It's all done for every page on my website, and not cost me anything. 9 lines of code, a bit of design work with the image, and job's done. So just to go back, there you can see, yes, you can get better than this, but do you have the time to get better? And do you have the time, especially on a site that might have thousands of events, thousands of different articles for every page? This way, when someone goes to your site and shares the page on Facebook, you know it'll always have an image of the right size with your brand, with the right link, and it's all there, done. Completely forget about it. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening.